They say America's highways never really sleep. Even when the last diner light goes out and the CB chatter fades into static, something still moves out there. A whisper of diesel through fog. Headlights where no road should be. And if you've driven long enough through enough empty miles, you start to feel it, that the road remembers. Every crash, every lost driver, every promise never delivered. This isn't the kind of story you hear in truck stops. Not one they'll print in Overdrive or tell on Channel 19. This one comes from a man who's still out there, somewhere. A driver who swears he was followed by something that looked like a truck, but wasn't. He said it found him once near the Oregon border, and it never stopped following. So if you're listening to this from the cab of your rig tonight, keep an eye on your mirrors, because some headlights never turn off. Name's Mason Rudd. Folks on 19 call me Granite because I don't spook easy and I don't hurry when hurrying won't help. 26 years under a moving roof. Most of them along the spine of the Rockies where wind can slap a man's pride off the road in a second. I run a Kenworth T680 these days. Automatic because my left knee voted for retirement years back. Pulling a 53-foot dry van. That night I was northbound out of Rawlins, Wyoming. Scheduled for a 07 South 08-hour drop at a big box DC in Billings. Light load. 12 pallets of camping stoves and fuel canisters banded so tight the trailer smelled faintly of plastic and metal even with the doors shut. Dispatch had pushed me around a late-blowing system. Take the safer line, they said. GPS will reroute you around closures. Safer is a theory after midnight. Sky looked like brushed tin. Clouds sanded down to a dull sheet. Stars smothered to thumbprints. The air through the vents had that metallic cold you can taste without opening your mouth. I set the cruise at 61 and let the tires sing that low note that tells you the road still believes in you. Channel 19 was close to prayer. A tanker out of Rock Springs warning of elk on a curve, a cattle hauler swearing he'd seen fence posts breathe, then just the small, careful teeth of static, chewing. My wheel had its honest tremor, a tame vibration living in the column like a trapped bee. As long as it hums, the world touches you. When it goes smooth, that's when a driver gets religious. I keep my route notes rubber-banded to the visor even when GPS thinks it's king. Habit. They were clean. I-80 to 287. Cut to 191, pickup 90. No overpass detours. No weird goat tracks. No heroics. Weather held until it didn't. Somewhere past midnight, the wind laid down and the road got too quiet. You'd think that's good news. Anyone who runs mountain country knows better. Still air on a high plain feels like a held breath. The first oddity was small. I passed a green mile marker that leaned like it remembered a bad winter. The number flashed in my high beams, 229. 10 minutes later, another marker leaned the same way. 229 again. I told myself, old joke, Wyoming recycles everything, even signs. The GPS hiccuped once, map tiles blinking like eyelids. Then it drew a new line as if it had discovered a better idea. Exit in 1 mile, it said in that soft, well-behaved voice. Follow local route to US 191. There isn't an exit in 1, I said to the empty cab, which has heard me argue with reality more than once. The screen insisted, the little blue wedge beginning a gentle rightward lean. I watched for the promised ramp with that wary attention you give a dog that's never bitten anyone but owns the teeth to do it. A sign bloomed out of the dark. Service road overpass, local traffic only. Not state font exactly, letters a hair too tall. Reflective sheeting that caught the light wrong. An arrow pointed up a narrow 2-lane that climbed toward a rail line and a low bridge. Stone sides, dark arch. It wasn't on my visor notes. It wasn't in my head. GPS loved it. Turn right, it murmured. Best route available. Night rules say you don't take brand new roads when tired and alone unless a trooper tells you, or God signs it in lightning. But the interstate ahead looked like a black lake with no shore, and my gut said wind was sleeping light and would wake ugly. The overpass road held dry. A frost fleck sheen where headlights combed. I signaled, told 19. I was stepping off for a short jog and took the ramp like a man negotiating with strangers. The 2-lane felt older than the interstate by a century. Asphalt patched in rectangular scars, pale aggregate winking like old teeth, white lines thin and hesitant. Guardrail posts leaned toward the ravine with the posture of drunks. Beyond my beams, a depthless dark pooled, ravine or cut hard to tell. The bridge rose toward me, a stone-backed thing with a single lane under the arch and no shoulders worth the name. I could smell cold earth, the damp mineral breath places hold where sun can't find them. The wheel's hum softened, almost smooth. Fog began where the bridge began. Not a soft valley mist, a wall. It gathered from nowhere and rolled across the arch like the world exhaling into a jar. My windshield took it and turned it to milk. The defrost fan coughed warm air that smelled faintly of burnt dust and old plastic. The fog didn't care. I eased down to 20. The tires found the seam between asphalt and stone and told me in tiny, upset whispers that I was very slightly wrong. That's when I saw the lantern. It was ahead and a hair left of center, yellow light bobbing with that old glass tremor, not steady like LEDs. A figure stood behind it, arm raised, coat or cloak hanging wrong in the damp. He, or the shape the fog arranged itself into, lifted the lantern, then held his free arm out like a man saying, "Whoa, easy." Even through fog, my brain made quick math. Work crew flagger, rural sheriff, some rancher guarding a washout. I laid into the brake with the care of a surgeon. The trailer settled behind me, obedient. I felt the freight shift against its straps and stop. My hazard click set a metronome in the cab, seconds with edges. I brought the Kenworth to a stop 10, maybe 12 feet short of the lantern. In the fog haze, the light looked wet. The figure behind it was taller than me by a head, shoulders like unfinished timber. The coat or duster hung heavy. I couldn't make a face. I didn't like that I couldn't make a face. "Evening," I called through the cracked driver window. The fog pushed a chill under my collar and stroked the nerves along my spine with a wet finger. "Rode out? You want me to back?" He didn't answer. The lantern tilted, then steadied, then lifted higher. It painted the stone arch in a honey wash, revealed the old chiseled blocks fitted without the mercy of mortar. The fog thickened like breath on glass. The lantern arm made a short circle, a small invitation. I've learned treaties with night. I don't leave the cab unless I expect to make a friend, a fix, or a mistake on purpose. But something in me wanted to see that light up close, to turn a shape into a person, to place the lantern in a hand and the hand on an arm and the arm on a man whose eyes would reflect my headlights like human eyes do. I set the brake, tested the wheel to be sure the truck would wait for me like a dog tied to its post, and climbed down. The fog took me the way cold water takes your shin when you step off a rock rung. Up close, sound changed. Fog eats distance and amplifies near things. My own breath sounded like I was listening through a paper bag. The lantern hissed softly as droplets hit hot glass. The smell riding the air wasn't just whetstone now, ozone. That pre-storm tang without thunder to own it. And under it, faint as a memory, cold iron like the taste after you bite your lip. "Sir?" I said, polite because my voice needed rails. "I'm northbound for 191, then 90. If the deck's bad, I can back and take the long way." He stepped one pace backward toward the arch center, lantern raised. The fog behind him pulled up a shade as if clearing its throat to show me something. I saw nothing. A white fill, a soft wall. Not bridge deck, not rail, not continuation. My brain supplied where the world declined. More road, short concrete barriers, a grade down. The lantern bobbed once. My foot slid half a step forward without asking me. A gust pushed from the ravine. It came up through the stone, not across it. Cold rode the gust. The metallic penny-on-tongue cold my vent sometimes exhaled when something was wrong with the blend door. The hair along my forearm stood straight under the cuff of my jacket. I said out loud, "No," as if the fog had made me an offer. I backed one step. The lantern holder didn't press me. He shifted 2 feet to my right. And even without seeing his face, I understood the posture. Not come, but stop. Not a lure. A warning dressed like one. My hazard light clicked. 1, 2. I counted them and told my feet how to live by that time. I walked backward until my calf found my own step and my hand found my door handle, and my eyes never left the lantern, because there are old rules about eyes and night and the things it puts into a man's shape. When I climbed in, the cab's familiar smells, plastic, coffee, bitter. Wet rubber from boots felt like religion. I dropped it into reverse and the backup beeper sounded absurd and brave against the fog. The lantern didn't chase me. It hovered its small circle. The figure behind it blurred until fog swallowed him whole. I backed off that bridge like a man withdrawing his hand from a dog's mouth. The wheel told me edges. The mirrors offered nothing but white smeared like chalk. The reefer hum I didn't have throbbed phantom in my bones. Old habits, old loads. When the tires found the lip that meant asphalt was becoming ramp and ramp was becoming interstate again, the wheels' trapped bee tremor returned, a small, holy hum. My breath released a knot I didn't know I'd tied. The GPS spoke as if none of it had happened. "Continue north for 14 miles, it said, bright as a receptionist. "Shut up," I told it. I killed the voice and let the map hold its opinions without sound. Fog thinned to puppy's breath. The interstate widened into a known world. I picked up a mile marker that leaned a different way, 224. I drove 20 minutes without trusting the quiet and then another 10 because trust is not a switch. At a pullout, I took a long breath of Wyoming night through cracked glass, dry sage, old dust, the faintest memory of rain that never arrives, and leaned my forehead against the wheel until the leather cooled. Fog thinned to puppy's breath. The interstate widened into a known world. I picked up a mile marker that leaned a different way, 224. I drove 20 minutes without trusting the quiet and then another 10 because trust is not a switch. At a pullout, I took a long breath of Wyoming night through cracked glass, dry sage, old dust, the faintest memory of rain that never arrives, and leaned my forehead against the wheel until the leather cooled. At dawn, bright as if night had been a bad rumor, I rolled into a diner with a parking lot a mile long and a coffee pot older than my career. The waitress looked like Wyoming teaches you to look, sturdy as fence post cedar, humor like a nail you don't step on twice. I told her, "I nearly drove off a bridge last night that I can't find on a map." I meant it as a joke I could throw away if she laughed wrong. She didn't laugh. She poured coffee, the smell like burnt toast and relief. "You were at Box Eldercut," she said, not asking. "Or where it used to be." I didn't move. "Used to be?" "Rail crews called it the Phantom," she said. "Fog pockets love that ravine. Highway put an overpass over the cut back when my granddad was young. Then a storm took half the deck one spring. County shut it. Folks got sick of paying for a barricade nobody respected, so the state took the bridge out. 20 years ago, if it was yesterday, people still try to drive over what isn't there. That fog," she tilted the pot like she could pour a memory, "comes up fast and makes a liar out of good men." "I saw a lantern," I said, the sentence heavier than I wanted it to be. She nodded once, an old nod. "They say track walkers still do their rounds. Had one who used to live in a section house up the line, carried a lantern because he didn't trust batteries to warn fools. He got taken off the cut in a blizzard day before Christmas 19-something. Folks set a chair for him at the Rotary for years. Some nights that light shows up where it helps. Helps who? Whichever fool is next." I wanted to be satisfied with a folk tale. A man can keep his hands on a wheel with a legend better than he can with a riddle, but the GPS in my dash had drawn a road. The signs on the interstate had told me there was an exit. My eyes had seen blocks of stone and a man raising a lantern in air that tasted like iron. I don't care for stories that change their mind in daylight. After the drop, I went back. Call it stubborn or proof-chasing. I took the miles like medicine. The morning was honest. The sky the color of a blue plate special. I found the silhouette of the ravine by the shape of windbreaks, by a barn that leaned like it believed in winter more than people. I found where the ramp had been a 2-track full of cheatgrass and beer cans, a signpost cut off clean like a finger, and a small rectangle of poured concrete with anchor bolts that went nowhere. The abutments remained. From the right angle, you could see where stone met air with an argument it had lost. No deck, no arch, no guardrail. No place to stand unless you liked the idea of falling as a hobby. In the center of the old grade, weeds grew thin and brittle. Something had pushed through them recently. Tracks not tire, not boot. Curved scuffs. 2 parallel arcs like a man's steps dragging a weight. I walked to the edge and looked into a throat of pine and long shadows. Cold came up from the ravine in a steady, indifferent draft. The smell of damp iron lifted like a remembered taste. I stepped back before the wind had a chance to nominate me for a lesson. I didn't talk to Dot about it. I didn't send in a ticket for the GPS map. You live long enough on the road and you learn which stories belong to state systems and which you keep in the glove box with a pencil stub and an old logbook you never threw away. Still, it hasn't let me go. Some nights, usually around the hour when human plans get bored and weather gets ideas, the wheel's hum will thin and the cab will cool in a way the thermostat didn't ask for. The GPS line will hiccup. A gray spur will bloom to the right even if I'm in Kansas or Nevada, or a diner parking lot big enough to land helicopters. The voice, if I forget to mute it, will say, "Turn right," with the calm of a machine that never reverses course, and through glass that holds only my reflection and the world I believe in. I'll catch the tremor of a yellow light bobbing once, twice, like someone warning me not to make the mistake he was born to prevent. I have not found that overpass on any map since. Satellite view shows a smear of lighter earth where a deck should be, and then forgets what it was looking for. Old atlases, truckers' pocketbooks with grease on the corners, nothing. But when fog sows itself into the world ahead of me and the smell of rain on sand blends with a faint, coin taste of cold iron, I lift off the hammer and count hazard clicks to keep time with my fear. 1, 2. The lantern is never there. Except it is on the inside of my eyes where prudence keeps its lanterns lit. You want a practical takeaway? Here's mine. If a bridge appears where your notes say it shouldn't and a light warns you in a voice that never learned batteries, treat it like a highway sign that loves you. Don't argue maps with the dead. Don't test grades with fog and memory. Back out while the road still remembers your name. I still roll those lanes. Wyoming is stubborn and so am I. And some dawns, when the CB goes quiet the way rooms go quiet for eulogies. I hear a lantern hiss where there isn't air to feed it, and my tires hum a question to a bridge that isn't there to answer. I still hear the warning in that silence every time the CB goes quiet. I run nights, name's Earl. 48-26 of those behind a wheel. I haul dry van mostly. Paper rolls, palletized food, sometimes electronics when the lanes line up. My truck's a 2019 Peterbilt 579, Packer engine that hums at 62 like a lullaby you don't trust, and a dash cam that blinks red in the corner of my eye when the road gets lonely. I keep the cab clean. Coffee thermos wedged by the shifter, logbook squared away, and a rosary that belonged to my mother hanging from the CB. I'm not superstitious. I just like the weight of it tapping the console when the road gets rough. This was late October, first cold snap that puts a bite in the steering wheel. I was running south on I-5, skirting the Oregon border after midnight, Medford to Redding, a drop the next morning, then east toward Reno. No rain, just a thin frost spreading over the asphalt, the kind that catches light from your high beams and makes it look like the road has a pulse. Channel 19 was mostly dead. Just a pair of loggers jawing about a way station rumor. The occasional cattle hauler whining about CHP hiding past an overpass. Out past Ashland, the air had that metallic tint like coins in your mouth. I cracked the vent, sucked it in, and focused on keeping the trailer smooth on the downhills. That's when I saw the black semi. No logo. No dot numbers, no company name on the door. Just a plain matte black tractor and a black box trailer behind it, as if someone dipped the whole rig in night and rolled it out to dry. It hung in my mirrors, 200 feet back, dead center in the lane, lights neither bright nor dim. Not brights, not low beams, something in between, so steady I could set a metronome by it. I figured he was just a shy driver. Some folks lock onto a pace and let you pull them like a train. He stayed there. He stayed there past the exit to Hornbrook, past the rest area where the vending machine eats your dollar and laughs. When I slowed, he slowed. When I nudged up a couple miles an hour, he drifted up with me, still a few hundred feet back. I toggled the CB and keyed up. Back door, how's it looking? You want the hammer lane, or you good where you are? Static hiss and the faintest crackle of voices like someone whispering underwater. I checked the squelch, tried again. Nothing. The rosary tapped the console, counting seconds. You get weird convoys at night. Tourists' rental car drafting behind a big truck. Kids filming TikToks. New drivers too nervous to pass. I told myself it was that. I told myself a lot of things. In Eureka, I thought I lost him. Urban glow from gas stations and a closed diner with neon that flickered and read, "Eat, eat, eat," like a mouth chewing on its own light. I swung into the TA for diesel. Felt the concrete shudder under the weight of my rig. The black semi didn't pull in. It rolled past, slow as a funeral. I craned my neck and watched those lights cross the far lane and slide deeper into the dark. Good, I thought. Whatever game that was, it's over. Except when I merged back on, he was there again. No acceleration, no merge. Just there. Redding came with its tired orange street lamps and the river dark as oil. My drop wasn't till morning. I figured I'd grab a motel, shower the road off my skin. I chose the old one across from a shuttered steakhouse, the kind with buzzing fluorescent tubes outside every door. thin curtains that never block out the parking lot glare. I parked the Pete on the gravel shoulder across the highway, legal enough, and walked my overnight bag in. The clerk slid me a key card without looking up, TV murmuring something about the weather. I didn't sleep. I lay on the bed fully clothed, boots off, eyes on the ceiling, listening to the distant ebb and flow of traffic. White noise I usually love. Every 7 or 8 minutes there was a low idle that swelled and sank, not passing, not fading. I got up, crossed to the window, and spread 2 fingers on the cold glass. Across the highway, angled between a stand of dark pines and a broken lamp, I saw him. The black semi parked broadside, trailer squared to the road. No driver's silhouette. No cab light. Just that mat shape like someone cut a truck out of reality and left a hole behind. When I finally slept, it was because the body shuts down when the mind is too stubborn to. I woke to blue light outlining the curtains and the smell of old air, stale and sweet, like spilled soda in a theater. On the highway shoulder where my truck should have been alone, there was nothing. No black rig. Just frost on the gravel, a glimmer that winked and vanished as the sun tried to get up the nerve. I delivered my load and didn't think about it. Weeks pass quick when you run nights. The world narrows to lanes and signs, fuel receipts, the rhythm of way stations opening and closing like gills. You stop talking to friends because they live by sun. You make friends with on-ramps instead. I was cutting back north on 97 near Klamath when the CB woke up. Not words, tones. High, low, repeating, like someone trying to whistle through a cracked tooth. Then a voice, a woman's old radio quality like AM under a thunderstorm. You missed the turn. I didn't miss any turns. GPS was clean. My route was a straight line through empty space. Say again, I said. Say again for northbound. You're braking, static. The rosary tapped its patient rhythm. Then soft enough I thought it was memory at first. Earl. I shut the radio off. Left it off. The strange thing was how ordinary everything stayed. I fueled. I ate a turkey sandwich that tasted like salt and habit. I ran my post-trip, checked the tires with my bat, and watched breath bloom white in the light from the fuel island canopy. Nothing strange. Nothing wrong. My truck idled with a deep, steady purr like a big animal asleep, and still in mirrors sometimes that black shape at the edge of the world. I didn't say anything to dispatch. You don't tell them you're haunted by a vehicle with no plates. They send you to a clinic that smells like antiseptic, and half the night you'd rather spend on the road. I told myself it was fatigue, the way lane lines can look like they're swimming if you stare too long. I told myself a lot of things again. They didn't help. It was around Thanksgiving, the kind of cold that makes diesel slow, when it followed me home. I live outside Red Bluff in a brown house that looks like a Band-Aid. Quarter-acre of stubborn grass and a carport that always smells faintly of hot rubber. The neighborhood is quiet. A mix of retirees and guys who work early construction. No HOA, thank God. I pulled in late, cut the engine, and sat there a minute, letting the silence climb aboard. The sky was clean and full of stars, like someone had rinsed it in ice water. My porch light burned a circle on the concrete, and the cicadas had gone quiet for winter. It felt like the pause before a coin drops on the other side of a door. I was halfway to the house when I heard it, an engine idling. Low even, a big block settling into a patient rhythm. It wasn't my Pete, I just killed my Pete. It wasn't any neighbor's truck. Nobody runs rigs on my street. The sound wasn't coming from anywhere, just arriving like fog does, like a smell does. I turned and looked down the road. Nothing, empty curb. Puddled streetlight. Mailboxes that look like they're bracing for a blow. I stood there with my keys in my hand and felt the air change, go colder in a thin layer that skimmed my skin. Ozone, faint as a struck match. I felt the hair lift along my forearms under my jacket, 1,000 tiny needles poised to fall. The idling sound thickened, not louder so much as closer, like someone had opened a door in the dark and the sound came through. And then it faded, steady as tide rolling back. I stayed there long after it was gone, listening to the nothing that followed. You could tell me it was tinnitus. You could say I heard my own truck echoing around my skull. Maybe. But tinnitus doesn't leave frost along the edge of your grass in a line like a parking space. The next day I told myself to shake it off. And I did, because men like me are good at pretending nothing's wrong with a machine until it stops. I swept the cab, checked the oil, set out again with a load of floor tile bound for a distribution center east of Sacramento. Day run, the sun was up. The CB was nonsense, someone broadcasting a prank about UFOs, laughter, a guy from Bakersfield singing off-key to stay awake. I almost convinced myself I'd built the whole thing out of distance and caffeine. Then, the GPS mapped a route from my house to my house. I was pulling onto the state route when the dash tablet blinked and the screen ghosted, overlaying my current road with a light gray previous route. Not unusual. It keeps history. But the highlighted path was a short loop. My street, a right at the stop sign, a left where there is no left because that's a flood ditch, then back to my driveway, a slow U, and out again. It animated on repeat, a little arrow crawling the same impossible circuit. I rebooted it. The loop came back. I disabled history. It drew itself again, insistent as a finger on frosted glass. That day, every reflective surface had an echo in it. Not a shape you could point at. Not a thing with edges. Just the suggestion of mass, the way heat above asphalt shivers the world. In my side mirror, the far lane bent a degree more than it should. In my hood mirror, the shoulder wavered as if a dark fish were swimming just under it. When I glanced back to the trailer through the rear view, the door latches sometimes looked like eyes, as if they'd turn and meet mine. None of this is proof. I know that. What I'm giving you is a record, not a diagnosis. I started asking questions in places where no one lists their last names. There's a diner outside Weed where truckers tape business cards along the paneling, and the coffee never gets to fresh but never settles into old. I asked the waitress, a woman older than mountains, if she'd heard about a black rig with no plates. She said no. Then she said she'd seen a lot of things she didn't file under heard or seen. She asked if mine was the sort of story that ends with, "and I quit." I told her I didn't know. At a way station near Corning, 2 DOD officers were swapping stories in the wind that always smells like dry hay. One of them, kid, freckles like he'd painted them on, laughed when I brought up the unmarked truck. The other, older, leaned against the rail and didn't laugh. "Somebody got you pacing?" he said. "Happens. You get a shadow on long runs. Brains like to see patterns." I said this was a little beyond a pattern. He said, "Then don't invite it in," as if that was a thing you could choose. The second time the idling came to my street, I didn't go to the window. I lay in bed and counted. 60 beats per minute, 70. The frequency of a big engine at idle depends on load and displacement, sure, but you can feel differences if you've lived in that sound long enough. This one was steady, unburdened. No compressor kicking in. No jitter from the AC, it was patient. It had nowhere else to be. In the morning, there were tracks in the frost again. Not real tracks. Not the pressed print of tires you can measure and take a mold of. These were bands of melted dew in twin lines, straight as if drawn with a chalk line, then broken by the shape of the cul-de-sac like someone had lifted them and set them down again. I started leaving the CB on at home, listening to 19 like it was an AM prayer station. Most nights it was empty hiss, the sound of air moving across a void. Sometimes a voice would come through, not a trucker's patter, just words like items on a list. Ash, mile, 9, home. Once it said my name again, the way my mother did when I pretended not to hear her. Earl. Soft, disappointed almost. The speaker wasn't live. The radio was off. Yet the sound threaded the room, shivering the glass in a picture frame on my dresser. You can say the brain hears what it needs to. You can say a lot of things in the middle of a day with other people's voices to keep yours company. Alone at 3 a.m., your logic sounds thinner. The closest I came to proof was at a rest area south of Dunsmuir, cold enough that the bathroom's hand dryer blew air like a sigh from a morgue. I parked beside a battered Kenworth whose driver was asleep with his curtain cracked, TV glow peeking out. The lot's sodium lights threw shadows like bruises. I killed my engine, stepped down, and the instant my boot hit concrete, I heard a second idle join the silence, 1 lane over. I looked, empty lane. The idle deepened. My chest felt hollowed out, ribs acting like a tuning fork. I walked toward the sound, and the air ahead of me got colder by degrees until my breath smoked like a tailpipe. My hand reached into it, and for a second the hair on my knuckles lay flat as if pressed by wind. There was no wind. I took out my phone to record, and the microphone caught nothing but the distant freeway, the endless inhale and exhale of highway lungs. Playing it back later made me angrier than it should have. The world I lived in didn't make it onto screens. It seldom does. 2 nights later, I saw the black semi on my own street. It was where the shadows are thickest between Mrs. Alvarez's sycamores and the brick mailbox that leans like it's tired of holding secrets. No lights, no glow. Just shape, wrong against the geometry of houses. I stepped off my porch and the boards creaked like breath. The thing didn't move. It didn't vanish or flicker or throw cold flame. It sat, it occupied. I walked closer, each step a question I wouldn't know how to answer. When I was near enough to taste the air around it, ozone, rain that hadn't happened yet, copper pennies on the tongue, the idol rose from nothing to present. Not louder, present as a fact. I reached for the trailer door with the same hand I use for blessings and goodbyes. The metal wasn't there. My fingers closed on nothing. My body leaned into something that didn't exist and almost fell. The idol dropped to baseline, patient as sleep. Behind me, a voice came through my CB. The cab was a dark square on my driveway, the interior light off. The radio should have been dead. It wasn't. Channel 19, carrier open, a wash of static, then the sound of someone clearing their throat through a tunnel 1,000 miles long. Breaker 19, the voice said, and I knew it. Not from the road. From memory. From funerals. It was my old dispatcher, Carl, gone 15 years from a stroke in an office that smelled like burnt coffee and rubber bands. You missed the turn, he said. And then he said my mother's name. And then he said mine. I keyed the mic with a hand I didn't know I'd lifted. Copy, I heard myself say. Copy for the black box on my back door. The words sounded sane and wrong all at once, like putting a social smile on a dead man. State you're 20. Static laughed without a mouth. Then home. It didn't sound like an answer. It sounded like a verdict. The next morning, my GPS ran the loop again. From my house to my house, left where there was no left. I tried to overlay the map with satellite view and the tablet stalled. When it blinked back to life, the picture showed my street and a long black rectangle where no vehicle stood. A shadow, an absence, a souvenir from a world that doesn't take photos. I still run nights. Bills don't pay themselves. The black semi stays off my bumper most days now, content to drift in the mirror's periphery. But sometimes, hours into the dark when the universe is one ellipsis after another, I'll feel the wheel go weightless for a breath. Like the road has ceased to be solid and become a thought. The CB will click with a carrier. No voice, just someone on the other end holding the button down, listening to me not say anything. And then the air in the cab will sharpen, and the little hairs along my wrists will lie flat the way they did that night at the rest area. A smell like rain on iron will fill the space between me and the glass. The rosary will swing and kiss the dash with a soft tap, and the world will reassemble itself as if it had briefly forgotten how to be a world. I don't tell this story to new drivers. They have enough ghosts, their first night jackknifed in their heads, the sound of a deer they didn't see. I tell it to men with road in their blood, the ones who know what silence weighs. You can believe me or not, it doesn't change the shape of the thing that follows me. It doesn't change the fact that some nights when the CB goes quiet and the lane lines glow like bones under skin, I can feel an engine behind me that doesn't belong to any machine they put tags on. It keeps pace. It keeps time. It keeps me honest. I lock my door at home now. Not because a lock stops what isn't entirely here. Because rituals matter. I sleep with the window cracked, listening. Some nights the street is empty of everything but stars. Some nights something idles where the frost will show it in the morning. And every time I close my eyes, I leave one part of myself at the edge of the bed, listening for compression, counting seconds, waiting for the breath of a machine that breathes without fuel. A patience that does not know dawn. I don't know what it wants. I don't know why. Weeks after I first saw it near the Oregon border, it parked across from my motel. And weeks after that, it found the turn to my street. If there's a rule for this, I haven't learned it. If there's a lesson, it's this. Some loads you never drop. Some trailers you haul, whether you're under a dispatch or not, I'll keep driving. The world makes more sense from a cab even when it doesn't. The lane lines are laws no legislature wrote. The mirrors are truth more often than people are. I won't chase whatever it is. I won't hit the brakes and dare it to pass. I'll let it sit 200 feet back, right where the red glow of my markers fades to almost nothing. And if it wants to follow me home again, it knows the way. I'm the one who needs reminding. Every time the CB goes quiet, I still hear the engine behind me.